Hey, and welcome everybody. It is Wednesday, 7 o'clock in Sci-Fi Distilled. Welcome, Bruce. Welcome back, Mary Beth, of course. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody had a safe and fun Halloween.
Yeah,
We don't get tricks or treaters. We're too
I
far off.
don't either. I kind of miss it.
We had
Yeah, it was nice. I used to like when I had a house down in Florida and we had a little neighborhood.
Sorry.
Oh, somebody's watching
No,
our video.
that was me. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Hey, David Alexander's already here. Thanks, and Bill. Welcome, guys. So tonight we are doing the two Dredd movies. We have the one from 1995 starring Sylvester Stallone, and the remake, or if you want to call it a remake, from 2012 starring our good friend Karl Urban. We're not here to bash any either or, just kind of compare, contrast, and see which one's got what right and which one's got what wrong. Compared to the comic book. Now, I am going to full disclosure. I hate using that term because everybody does it these days, but I have never read the comic book. It's a British comic, and I kind of think that this one fell into the gap, the same problem that what was the French comic that they came out, the sci-fi one that was supposed to be what Star Wars was based on.
Valerian.
Oh, like heavy metal.
No, not heavy metal.
Valerian.
I know which
Valerian.
Valerian. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Which was really popular in Europe, but nobody in the United States even knew anything about it. So they make this big blockbuster film for the United States, and everybody's like, "What is this?" And I think Dredd might have fallen into this category a little bit, especially in '95 when the movie came out. I had no idea who Judge Dredd was. Again, not a comic book guy. So, but we do know a little bit about the comics, and I think the movies were very different than the comic books. They took elements, but not a copy of the thing. So, but before we do that, Mary Beth must have.
We have a little news. Hi, Dr. Alexander. Hi, Bill. Hi, Jeff. And hello, Sue. Hey, Doc. Did you get your T-shirt or your sweatshirt, whatever we sent you? I hope you did. All right, tonight in the news, Avatar 2 trailer dropped on Good Morning America today. Okay. It looks like more of the same. More of the same as what we had before. James Cameron pioneered ways to do motion capture underwater for this movie. So there should be some interesting things, but I don't know. I
take that down.
What are you doing?
My bad. Continue.
Okay. That's it. That's all I got. Avatar 2.
That's all you got. Okay, so actually,
I got more news. That's all I got.
Oh, I thought you said
that's all I got for Avatar. Henry Cavill. So Witcher fans everywhere are freaking hard. Henry Cavill will be doing season 3 of The Witcher, and it has been announced that he has been replaced by Liam Hemsworth in season 4. Liam, the brother of Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor. Henry wrote on Insta, and this is Henry's words, not mine. My journey as Geralt of wherever the heck Geralt's from has been filled with both monsters and adventures. And alas, I'll be laying down my medallion and swords for season 4. Instead, the fantastic Mr. Liam Hemsworth will be taking up the mantle of the White Wolf. Fans are freaking out. Speculation is running high as to why he's being replaced. He had said he was committed to The Witcher and would do it even if he was doing other projects. So we're not exactly sure what is going on here. Speaking of other projects and Henry Cavill, this is a Black Adam spoiler. Again, this is a Black Adam spoiler. Put your fingers in your ears if you haven't seen Black Adam yet. I'll wait. You ready? Okay. Henry Cavill makes a brief appearance as Superman in Black Adam. He confirmed that he chose which of his Superman costumes he would wear in the film. He says, I chose the one in particular that I chose because of the nostalgia attached to the suit. And it was incredibly important for me not just to be standing there and enjoying the moment. So look for him in Black Adam if you're going to go see it. Speaking of Black Adam and the DCEU in general, James Gunn, the DC cinematic universe is about to change in a really, really big way, with the company finally naming James Gunn as their version of Kevin Feige. You guys know Kevin Feige's the mastermind behind the MCU. So now James Gunn has been announced as the co-CEO of DC Studios. The other guy is Peter Safran. The other co is Peter Safran. Peter will manage the business side of the operation. James Gunn is in charge of the creative development. You guys probably know James Gunn best for Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad. Speaking of MCU, MCU has announced the Vision Quest, the WandaVision sequel has been announced as Vision Quest. Again, spoilers. If you guys haven't seen WandaVision, put your fingers in your ears. I'll wait again. Okay. At the end of WandaVision, remember there was White Vision. He goes flying off. Well, what happened to him? That's what we're going to look at in Vision Quest. The other WandaVision spinoff is Agatha, House of Harkness. So that should be interesting. And then finally tonight, everyone tell me what you think. Star Wars, Rizzo, I think I've heard you describe Star Wars as more fantasy than sci-fi. Sure, but the fantasy versus sci-fi debate has kind of been brought up again with the airing of Andor. So if you guys have been following Andor leans heavily on the sci-fi side, and specifically it's a very dystopian view of life under the Empire. So
all right. Go ahead. Finish.
Here's the debate. Is it refreshing to have a show like Andor tell a story without the Skywalkers and the space wizards?
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Everyone.
No, it's still not sci-fi in its true sense, because the true definition of sci-fi is you have a certain sense of reality with like one thing that is kind of fantastic in it. Like Star Trek always leans heavily on the tech. They explain things, or at least try to make sense of things. Star Wars, we don't care about the tech. Star Wars is a story about this empire and the people that live in it. It's just in this space universe. We don't question that light speed is not nearly fast enough to go across a galaxy, which this empire takes up almost the entire galaxy. We just there's the physics of Star Wars doesn't work. We don't care about that. It's not important.
True.
We just care about the story, which is basically a struggle of good and evil.
Hi, Chris.
That's the bottom line of Star Wars.
True.
Good, evil.
But the only true fantasy element, I guess talking.
I don't mean I never said it was fantasy in the sense of swords. The Jedi, but I mean you're assuming that fantasy means automatically swords and sorcery type thing. Fantasy can just that it's not based in our reality, and it's not really based in science. That makes any sense. At least that's my opinion. I could be wrong.
Bruce, what do you say?
I tend to agree. I mean, it's, if you want to call it maybe science fantasy or something like that, but it's definitely not the same thing as what you'd consider pure science fiction.
To me, like what Asimov wrote or Arthur C. Clarke wrote, those type Helena, those are true pure science fiction. Even Jules Verne.
If you take 1984 as pure science fiction, Andor absolutely fits pure science fiction.
Again, I don't know if I consider. I mean,
Andor.
Yes, 1984 could be considered science fiction in the sense that it's dystopian.
It's very dystopian. Andor leans heavily into sort of that fascist Nazi.
Well, again, we're seeing a darker side of Star Wars, and a lot of people didn't like that. I mean,
we are a very dark, very adult side.
But I like it because it's more real. I've been saying for years, and I think Star Trek can do the same thing if they wish to. There are other stories that are happening in the Empire that don't involve the Skywalker, story, or even the Empire and the rebellion per se. There are other things kind of going on that we can. There've been books that have been written that were, I think, one of the better books that was written was an anthology called Tales. I think it was called Tales from a Mos Eisley Cantina. And it was all the backstories of all those aliens in that cantina during that first movie. So we had all those aliens you can imagine. Each one had its own story. Even the band had a backstory as to why they were there in the cantina on that day. But a lot of them had nothing to do with the Empire or the Rebellion. They were just these random other stories that were happening. So I think they can branch out. I think Star Trek could do the same thing. I think we could see something. We could see a Star Trek universe. I think we could see a Star Trek universe show that doesn't involve Starfleet.
Yeah, we maybe could.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I do have. Are we?
Oh wait, do I have anything else? Yeah, I
do have one little thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah, let me just look. Is that it? Yeah, that looks like it's it for the news tonight.
So I don't know how many people are into, since I believe the video games fall into our category. It is the 25th anniversary of the Fallout franchise. If you've not followed any of that, Fallout is a video game based, again, in a dystopian post-apocalyptic America.
Dystopia is where it goes.
It has a very interesting look to it, as it's kind of as if the war happened in 1950s, but it happened in the 2070s. So you have this modern science that was happening at the time before the bombs fell, but it had a very Art Deco-y kind of a thing to it. So anyway, it is their 25th anniversary. And aside from the fact that Bethesda, that owns it, is doing all kinds of things around the franchise, they are also Prime is working on a Fallout television show. And that's what I put up earlier. This is the first
do Halo.
This is the first sneak. Yeah, Paramount did Halo. This is the first sneak. This is the only photo that has been kind of leaked. There's been no trailer. They do have a cast already set up. And I can't think of the guy's name. He was in Justified, if you remember that show with Timothy Olyphant. He was kind of the primary bad guy. Excellent actor. He's been in other stuff. And Boggs, I think, is last name. I want to say something like that. Anyway, so that's really cool. If you're into Fallout, I love Fallout, so that's probably, you might see some Fallout stuff behind me.
Walter Goggins.
Walter Goggins.
Yeah.
Walton.
Jeff, just back on Star Wars, Jeff is saying, I hope they don't keep humanizing the Empire. Yeah, in Andor, they show what ordinary people who work for the Empire kind of go through, but it's interesting. Sue was asking Dr. Alexander if they're still on target for the Artemis launch. If Doc can answer that question, he will. I don't know if he can or not. Hi, The Shadow. How are you? Hi, Dennis Chevalier. Welcome.
Chris is saying only Star Trek has hope. I would say that's not true, Chris. Star Wars has a lot of hope.
In fact,
rebellions are built on hope. Rebellions are built on hope.
Rebellions are built on hope. Yeah.
So
Dr. Alexander is saying Trek is Shakespeare.
Trek used to be that way, but I think the current Trek has kind of pulled away from that. It's not utopia.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that assessment.
Especially Picard has definitely, now I don't know what they're gonna do in season 3, but
if you consider Shakespeare erudite literature,
were not
Trek is for the masses.
There was a lot of hope going on, at least, and I saw going on in that Federation. So anyway. Are we gonna? Or I'm gonna do. I got a drink too.
Oh, the drink. Yeah, what are we drinking for our judges?
Drinking? Hang on, let me get that up for you.
Judges tonight.
So here it is. It's the Judge Dredd. This was kind of interesting. I found this one, so I thought I'd put it in there. So it's 1 part ginger rum. So you make ginger rum with a teaspoon of ground ginger, with basically 3/4 of an ounce, 3 3/4 of an ounce of dark rum. And you kind of let that soak for about 15 minutes and then filter it. So that gives you don't want to drink that without putting it in something. It's going to be harsh. So then 1 part wine and 1 part Coca-Cola. I don't know. Could be interesting. Maybe worth a try.
Kind of the mulled cider situation, but yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's not warm though.
No, not warm. Yeah. So it's a cold mulled wine. Yeah. I'm not against it.
Not against it. All right.
I'm not against it. I would try.
So that's up there for you guys. So anyway, moving on, we are going to talk about the Dredds. We'll talk about the 1995 Sylvester Stallone version first. They put a lot of money into this movie. They did not get their money back out of it. I'm not sure Stallone. Now, granted, he was pretty much on a high in the 90s. I mean, he's been a big actor since he did Rocky. Let's face it. I mean, he's kind of been an action hero all the way through. I think he was way better in Demolition Man. I thought that movie similar but better, and I think we might need to do Demolition Man.
I kept thinking of that movie all while I was watching.
And again, a lot of people get these two confused because the character is kind of similar in a lot of ways. I don't really, not even being like I said, not having the comic book as a base. This was kind of a lighthearted version, I think, of Dredd. It certainly was not. It had violence, sure, and action, but it wasn't dark, really. I mean,
We had Rob
Schneider as the annoying comic relief. I mean, he just had a few things in there that were funny, but yeah,
the problem was it didn't know what tone to do. It didn't know whether to go funny or not. And if you read some of the back history, Stallone was really pushing for it to be more comedic and more lighthearted, and they were butting heads like you wouldn't believe. To me, that whole era of films really suffered from what I call the Harrison Ford syndrome. And Harrison Ford in Star Wars, in Indiana Jones, here was the hero who made it funny, who was lighthearted, who quipped, who smiled at the camera and stuff like that. And those were so popular that you got Schwarzenegger doing them. You've got, Stallone doing them. And, Die Hard was the exact same sort of thing. And that was what was popular and what was expected. And they couldn't seem to pull away from that. There was just too many people who were supporting that side of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Die Hard, because the Karl Urban, the 2012 version, has been compared to a modern Die Hard, a darker Die Hard. When you think about it, well, it takes place, it's all in the one building. They have to get out of the building. The bad guys are after them in the building. There's a lot of parallels between the 2012 Dredd and
Christmas
Die Hard. So yeah, the Christmas movie. It is a Christmas movie. So anyway, but we'll screen it. We're going to stay on the 95 Judge Dredd as opposed to Dredd.
But Bruce made a great point. Just real quick, Chris LaRoche, you said that they confused Dredd and Demolition Man. Chris is saying they used a Demolition Man photo on the Dredd DVD release. That's interesting. I'd love to see that. I should Google that.
Well, the uniform was even similar.
Yeah, the uniform.
I mean, once he took off the ridiculous, that was the other thing I think they overdid. Was the accoutrement of like these giant things. It's like
they obviously thought this was going to be a smash hit. Did you notice the opening credits, how they were like introduced, like they were like, and the costume design by Versace and like all this stuff. Like they obviously thought this was going to be this huge
piece by.
But what Bruce was saying is absolutely accurate. That Stallone and Cannon, the director was Cannon, they were going head to head. This thing visually does look like the comic, like the design, maybe not the giant shoulders, but it looks, his motorcycle was more accurate. Like there were so many things visually.
The helmet was different. The helmet was wrong compared to they actually got the helmet right in Dredd.
Yeah, they didn't have the
cross.
That X thing.
Right.
You even see around an X.
One of the biggest pluses of this movie is it has Diane Lane in it.
So she did great.
Right there.
Yep.
Max von
right
Sydow,
there is a definite check mark on the positive side.
They all did great with what they had to work with. They just didn't know quite what they were working with.
It was interesting because when this came up as something you were going to do, I was trying to remember back to the 1995 movie. The only thing I could remember was the Rob Schneider bit of going, "Is that you, Dredd?" Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that was all improvised. And that to me is the most memorable part of that damn film.
That is when I was watching reviews to get ready for this, and that is the thing that, speaking of this thing, that is what people point to. In the comic,
he never took his
and that thing is 40 years old now. We've never seen Dredd.
Right. It's kind of like the Mandalorian.
Has that helmet on.
Right.
He is out Mandalorian the Mandalorian.
Right.
Yep.
That is the way he leaves that helmet on. We've never seen his face. And I think one time they drew his face and made a censor.
That was one thing that they did get, because that in the 2012
they got
version,
that right.
Urban never took the helmet.
In
fact, the first time I saw it, I wasn't really aware that it was Karl Urban.
You don't know it's Karl Urban.
Yeah.
And his voice is all gruff. And I'm looking at Karl Urban and I'm like, remembering him from the time he came to Trek Ticonderoga and we had us make a wish.
Remember, this is after.
He was so sweet.
He's already done McCoy.
And he had already done McCoy.
So it's not like he wasn't really. I mean, he's done stuff for years. I mean,
he's been more power to him, because that was the thing. Because with Stallone, with an actor like Stallone, you don't keep that hidden. That's your money right there. You want that scene, right? But Karl, God love him, he was like, "Yeah, I'll keep it on. They'll never see me the whole movie. Sure, I'll do it." Like wow.
And the other thing was, and it's a subtle thing. Schwarzenegger has to be Schwarzenegger. Karl Urban got the source material.
Yeah.
Because really, Judge Dredd was supposed to be a futuristic Dirty Harry. And you could tell every once in a while he sort of got into that Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry type motif. Well,
Great
no,
point.
Stallone has to be Stallone.
And they had to give him the tagline, which he used, which was "I knew you'd say that," which didn't work really. I mean, it kind of fell flat.
I am the law. Maybe they could have rolled with that, but I knew you'd say that, just didn't work.
And I think they overused "I am the law." And I think when he used it, I don't know why, it's just the way Stallone delivered those lines to me just seemed over the top and just kind of like when he gets convicted and he starts, you almost say, okay, this guy is crazy, because he's like, this can't happen, I am the law. And like, you're like, okay, he's kind of like not,
he's kind of over the,
he's over. That was, to me, that was a mistake the way they did that, because he's supposed to be the good guy. And he came across as crazy at that moment, you know. And I guess they were trying to get that, you know, he can't understand. And I guess that was part of the thing when Schneider on the prison barge, whatever you want to call it, kind of says, like, you know, how do you explain your situation if the law is always right? You know, and you can't, can you? Because he can't figure it out. But to me, that made him seem more robotic than human.
Well, I mean, that was, but again, you go back to the source comic, and that was more the point. Dredd is sort of more of a force of nature than necessarily a character. It's more the characters that surround him, and that's, to me, where you know, the 2012 movie got it more right. But the other thing I think that, you know, this suffered from, you know, I said the Harrison Ford syndrome, and also was the comic book syndrome. Until the X-Men at the beginning of the 2000s, as soon as he said this is coming from a comic book, it's for kids, it's supposed to be funny, it's not serious, etc. And, you know, to me, comparing the two, that's a huge difference. Is one was before, one was after.
This was 1995. Yeah, the whole idea of like a graphic novel and adult comics. And I don't mean X-rated. I mean adult content. You know what I mean? Like stories, mature stories, or whatever I'm trying to say. Through the 70s, it was kids. The 80s is when it made that shift. So by 95, it was still coming off the shift to adult content. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think they did. The whole plot was a huge disservice to the character, because the first story we're going to tell about him is how he's like, is the old committed, you know, accused of a crime he didn't commit story. And then they had to throw in the extra MacGuffin of the brother played by Armand
Assante. Now I want to talk about that, because he is a very good actor.
Yes.
And I thought it was over the top. His whole, like, he overdid it.
Yeah.
Way over the top.
Way over the did it. He's like, he was trying to be too crazy. And I don't think it worked. I think, you know, I don't think it was a good role for him. I mean, I think he could have done it better. I don't think necessarily he was a bad choice. I just think whether his direction, the way they told him to do it, I don't know. It's almost like the directors kind of mailed this one in a little bit.
But what was I going to say? Darn. I'm getting old. I lost it.
It'll come back
every week.
It'll come back. So just since you mentioned Armand, so our cat, we had Barbara Hershey. Let me just
Judge Hershey. Diane Lane played.
So yeah, what the hell am I saying? Diane Lane played Judge Hershey. My bad. I apologize. Armand was our big bad. Rob was our comic relief, and then there was just Max von Sydow was there, and Jurgen Prochnow. They were there, like they were just around, like. But it was a great.
Jurgen was the bad guy too.
Yeah,
he was the one.
Yeah, they were all
orchestrating the whole takeover.
Yeah, and guys, spoilers as usual. If you have, it's 1995. If you haven't seen it by now, but yeah,
and you know what? I don't. You know, the other part of it doesn't hold water with this movie. And I know you're trying to shoot holes in a movie that is just Swiss cheese to begin with, but you know, Jurgen had to know. They knew how crazy that Rico was, right? Because they put him in this prison for ever because he killed all these people. But you're going to let this guy out, and you're going to trust him that he's going to follow your orders, because why? What reason does he have once you let him out? Follow anything that you want to do, and of course it blows up in his face, you know.
But that was the interesting thing. Is my point was going to be that the 95 film took a story that completely destroyed the system. Yeah. So I mean, all the judges were killed and everything like that. And you never really got the ability to play on the, well, is this system right or is this system wrong? Well, no, it's wrong. It got destroyed. It has to be rebuilt and stuff like that. Yeah. Versus the 2012, which was more of a day.
There's more social commentary in it, yeah. And we'll dig into that when we dig into
the reason they felt it wasn't that I don't think he was trying to tear down the system because he felt it was wrong. It's just that he felt that they didn't have enough manpower that the city was the criminals were winning. There weren't enough judges. They couldn't control the city.
I mean, you go back
he wanted to open up this cloning program again so they could flood the streets with judges.
But you go back and this is a comic strip that has been 45 years and is still going strong. Mm. To me, it was a bad choice to take something that sort of almost completely destroyed the world that you had created as part of that first go at it. To me, 2012, the way they did it left it wide open for future stories, and it left it in a more interesting place.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So we're going to go a little longer, but because I want to get to 12, I want to stay on 95 for now, and then we'll go into the other one.
But Bruce is absolutely right. The comic skewered a lot of time. It was a British comic, but it took target at America.
Well, it was satirical as well.
It was satirical.
It was meant to be.
It was satirical, and it had a lot of social commentary on our political system and our society. Well, any on Earth, just not just America, but they tended to take digs in America because it was also taking place in America. And
the British right now should not be taking pot shots at us.
No, they should. The movie did not reflect that, and I think it did. If you're introducing this new character and you're hoping for this to be a smash success with possible sequels, that was not the way to do it.
Right.
I would have stayed a little truer to the source material because it was clearly working for them. Instead they took them out into the cursed earth.
I think again they were aiming for they were shotgunning. They were aiming for a much broader audience, and I think had they followed the comic book more tightly, they would have been. Most people would have been like, I don't even know what this is. Yeah. You look at the 2012 version, which is much darker, and again that audience narrowed to a very, very narrow audience is who's going to watch this and enjoy it. The general public probably would not have embraced something more accurate to the comic. That's my opinion. And that's usually what Hollywood thinks is they want to get the biggest bang for their buck. They don't give a crap about following a comic book.
Oh,
all they want to do is make money.
Super briefly, I just want to interject that Hollywood loves its sequels, prequels, reboots, which these comparisons of reboots, adaptations, and I kind of dug a little bit into why, and it's just roughly basically because Hollywood sort of sees these as the closest thing they can get to a sure thing, a guarantee. They're reasonably sure they're going to make money off of this. Neither of these films are super successful, but the reason why they do it is the reason why they lean toward the reboot, because they're like, I'm pretty sure the reboot will do okay, so let's do that to make money. That then frees us up to take a chance on other projects, more riskier projects that might not make money, because we've got this guaranteed income over here. Yeah, and so I just wanted, because I just was like, why
that might be the thinking, but it doesn't work.
Exactly. Oh, we lost Bruce. Come back, Bruce, whenever you can. Yeah. That you're absolutely right. That might be the strategy, the financial strategy, but you're absolutely right. It doesn't work. And this is an example of a reboot working, I think. But there are so many reboots that just don't work, and we're cringing. We watch them and we cringe. And we're like, oh.
Yeah, again, they're driven by financial concerns, not any kind of loyalty to the fans and or the franchise in general.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interject that, but I just took a little side dive.
No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, Hollywood does, as we know, they take good things and they can ruin them. And, and every once in a while we get gold.
True.
We get a movie that's gold, and it's usually because of certain people's passion for the project, whether it be Star Wars or something that like Spielberg worked on and wants to do and drives home. But I think anything that's studio driven, it tends to just not have very lot of substance, in my opinion. It's
Yeah.
a very general statement. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
There are always exceptions to the rule. So
Bruce, just click the link. You'll come right back. I don't know where you are or what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Bruce, just same link there, dude.
Come back, Bruce.
I don't know what happened to Bruce, but we'll move on. We'll keep going. We're gonna power through.
Yes,
we'll keep powering through. So we're about halfway through the hour, so we can probably start to switch over to Karl Urban's version. Now, if I had to pick between the two, I like the Urban version.
Me too. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I hate ultraviolet.
I just got a message from Bruce that he's trying to get back in.
He's trying to get back. Okay. He might have had a little internet.
Yeah, and I warned you. I said, just so you know.
You did. But you know what? Overall, it's the better movie.
It is the better movie. It's more interesting. I think things that like visually it was much darker, obviously, than the Stallone version. It's very graphic.
Very, but I want to make a point about something.
And this was originally, I believe, released in 3D. So you see kind of a lot of effects done to kind of make that more, they're more 3D, stuff that's coming out to the camera.
Yep.
Remember the old 3D movies where they would
Avatar: Last Airbender was in 3D. That was a lot. But yeah, so this movie, you're absolutely right. It is darker. It does use this ultra violence. It is really dark. It's like,
and the thing is, the cities are very different because
the cities are radically different.
Mega City 1 in Stallone is much more modern. It's shiny. There's flying cars. We still haven't gotten our flying cars.
What do you call those screens?
It was almost like a combination. You have crime going on, you have slums, but there's a lot of obviously people that are wealthy and living a good life. But we look at Dredds' version of Mega City 1, and it is not a nice place to live. It looks like it's all the cities run down. The people
imagine if you just paved like concrete from Boston to DC, which is where they said it was, Boston to DC.
Yep.
Sheer concrete. There wasn't a green. There wasn't a blade of grass. There wasn't. It was.
And there was nothing. There was nothing utopian about the city. It was all
very dystopian.
Everybody, most of the people. Now look at Bruce's device not connected. I don't know. He's still trying.
All right, no worries.
Let him in until he...
Super minor side note. Someone did the math, and then I did the math myself. Oh, there's super minor. We moved on
Bruce, never go to the light. Don't go to the light.
Don't go to the light. We've moved on to Karl Urban's super minor side note. They someone did the math on this. They said that is 800 million people, and it was like 17,000 acts of crime every day. And if you do the math on that, it's like 0.002 or 0.002% crime rate, which makes Mega City the safest city on earth, unless they meant in each section, in which case that would be quite a bit different. But I want to just talk about, because we mentioned how the look of this movie and how dark and concretey and just there's a lot of green in it. The story introduced the concept of this drug called slow-mo, which when you take it, it causes you to perceive everything in super slow motion. And I could not help but notice, and then researched it and found it was a deliberate choice by the director. Those moments when people were on slow-mo were the only moments of beauty in the film. Remember, the first scene we see, she's flipping her hand up and you see the water and it's pouring off her arm and it's sparkling. They break glass and each piece of glass sparkles. And even the hyper ultra violence in slow-mo is visually stunning. Like it's something to look at. There's the blood splatters, but splatters beautifully. Like the color is hyper saturated.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly the word. Is
suddenly there's color in the world. Suddenly there's something going on when they're on slow-mo, and then you get off slow-mo and everything's back to concrete.
The interesting thing to contrast this to the other storyline is this is a very contained story. Not only is it contained within this one building,
this is what we call a bottle show.
I mean, the building they said is like, I don't know, because at the end he says how many kilometers they are above the ground. Yeah. So it's this massive building, and it takes place in almost entirely. The movie takes place entirely inside this building. But the story is just about drug dealers, really, and gangs. whereas the other story was much more broad and involved the entire city. Of course, they do touch a little bit in this movie on corruption within the judges.
Yes.
The guys that came supposedly to help him. Spoilers, by the way. We're not, we're being paid off by the drug, running the drugs gang to get rid of Dredd and his partner there. So, and then they added the extra, and I don't know if this is in the comic. Maybe the guys that are familiar with her she's a psychic. She has a
yes, Cassandra Anderson is psychic. Okay. Yes, Bruce says
she's barely or didn't pass any of her in the movie. She didn't pass. She's a rookie. It's her first day, but they pass her anyway because they want this advantage of her being able to read people's minds. So it's just a big contrast in stories, in the type of story.
Yes.
So basically, like I said earlier, this became a Die Hard movie where the two of them are trying to survive to get out of the building. The entire building is pretty much after them, at least most of the bad guys. The mama there that's the gang leader basically says anybody that kills him, you're gonna win. So even these little kids, there was one scene where these little kids are gonna try to kill. I don't know what they were thinking.
They don't even know why, but they just know that that's how it works. And, Mama said, and so, okay. Bruce, we have both decided that this is the stronger film. What do you think?
I think this is far stronger a film. I think that it was a little bit closer to the source material. I think it was a little bit more, it made you think a little bit more. It was less cartoony. What is the law? What isn't the law? If Mama's in control and Mama says do this and you do it, is that not the law? So to me, it was much more interesting, and I think the performances overall were just stronger. I think most importantly, there was a vision. There was a direction to this film where maybe you didn't buy into it, but you could tell what they were trying to do, as opposed to, you could really tell that there was a conflict in the 95 film.
Yeah. There was a great little moment where they get into this one lady's apartment and she's like, I don't care. Just get out.
Get out. Yeah.
Just get out.
Well, the other thing, that was a very important scene, because then I forgot her name now.
Cassandra Anderson.
Anderson realized that she killed her husband, that woman's husband. She's the one that executed him and judged him, so to speak. So there's kind of a moment with her that she's realizing, that.
So she has a little moment of conflict.
She has a little conflict in her, but you notice she doesn't say anything. And of course, the wife there of that pretty much probably knew that her husband was going to get killed. Didn't, you know what I'm saying? It seems like, because she says he's out there.
Given what he was involved in,
yeah, he's involved in this. So, it was an interesting scene, to say the least. The other thing, when you're saying Urban only says "I am the law" that one time, and I think that was important because to me it rang more in true, or in other words, it was more dramatic when he said "I am the law" rather than Stallone saying it every 5 minutes.
Well, how many times did Michael Keaton say "I am Batman"?
Oh, that guy's in that movie.
Michael Keaton?
No. What are you? That guy? He's in one of these two movies. Give me a second. And I will.
Probably the 95 version, I'm going to guess.
I'm guessing he's British. He might be in this version. I don't know.
So anyway, if you haven't seen it, it is very violent. It is very graphic. They skin these. The first thing that they started right up from the ground running. I mean, they skin the guys that these. I guess they were competing gangs in the same building. They skin them, give them the slow-mo, and then throw them off the balcony, which is like a mile up or 2 kilometers, whatever they said it was. And of course, they splat down in the atrium at the bottom, and they splat. I mean, there's like brains.
It's bad.
It's pretty graphic.
When you were gone, Bruce, I was saying I genuinely dislike ultraviolence. I really.
Even the little homeless guy. Remember when they first go in and he said, "Judge says, don't be here.
Don't be here when I come."
And the door comes down. Now I don't know. The guy sees the door wasn't like slamming down like Star Wars doors do. But he would have had time to roll out of the way. But
yeah, I'm the same way with you, Mary Beth. The original RoboCop sort of turned me off because it was just so over the top violent. I don't know. I found this one. I found this one more palatable somehow.
I did too. I got through it fine. And like I was saying before, I noticed moments of actual beauty in the blood. It still looked beautiful as it was spattering out the side of the guy's head. Yeah, I don't know, man. It worked for the story they were telling. So you just took it in context. And
like I said, the other thing they did correctly, first of all, the helmet was correct. Mm-hmm. All right, minor thing, but at least they got that right. And then the Urban never took the helmet off.
Yeah. Because Dredd is this sort of force of nature. He's not necessarily a person. He's Dredd.
He's Dredd.
You know?
Even when you thought he gets shot all the way through.
Yes.
You think, okay, he's gonna die or he's done, and he's just like, no, I'm gonna kill you now, and then, or she's gonna kill you because I'm just delaying you, and then he's like sutures himself up. Yeah, like he's just a badass, basically. So I do like the fact that both movies had the not only the DNA triggered gun, which is actually a thing. They actually have biometric guns that's out there that won't fire without the right person.
Yeah, but they don't tend to explode if you.
No, which might be a good thing. I don't know, but But I like the programmable ordnance, so you could just tell it what you want to do.
And you know what? Even Urban's was better because I didn't like Stallone was using his and calling it out, and I was like, okay. And then he's like, double whammy. And I was like, no, you lost me.
Yeah, that was stupid. The double whammy thing was dumb. That was stupid. But the other one's incendiary and armor piercing and stuff like that.
Armor piercing.
Kind of cool. Yeah. That scene too, when Mama puts those Gatling guns across and it's shooting across. You want to talk about beautiful?
What were they?
Those ultraviolet. Those were like 50 caliber.
He took out the entire. I'm like, there's structural support, girl.
They were probably 50 caliber Gatling guns, if that's even a real thing.
And she's just.
I saw a figure saying that the Gatling guns, the ammo that they go through would have weighed about 2.2 tons.
Yeah, the amount, of course, suspension of disbelief. But, you want to talk about it was beautiful in its own way because it was just massive destruction. I mean, of course, a lot of people died in that thing, but the explosions and then the shots of the tracer fire going across the open part of the building into the the floor on the other side was a great scene. You got to admit. I mean, it was a really good scene and probably one of the better ones of the whole film.
Mm-hmm. No, I actually, the Stallone one, I have no interest in rewatching, but the 2012 I watched a couple of times, and I would go back and watch it again. I enjoyed it. In
its fairness, the 95 one was very 90s.
Yes.
So we have to keep that in mind. I did rewatch it. I still was entertained by it. I don't feel like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. It was action filled, that things moved along quickly. Again, there's not a lot of deep messaging going on in that film. It's just an action film. It's all it was ever designed to be. They're not trying, whereas the Urban one had more messages kind of in there, buried in there, certainly is it, but again, it was very 2000s as opposed, what I'm saying? It had more of a modern look to it. So of course we think, sitting here, with these two films, remember 95 was what, 27 years ago.
But the thing is with the 95 film, as I said, they took a big story where it sort of tore down the establishment. It would have been difficult to come up with a sequel. To me, that 2012 really felt like they were laying down the foundation for a franchise, and I would have really been interested to see where they would have gone in, a sequel or even a trilogy or something like that. I think they could have really taken it to some interesting places.
And they may have, but again, financially, it was a kind of a box office bomb for them.
They said it was good enough for sequels, but sort of just. But I think they just all lost interest for some reason. I don't know.
They'd have to have Urban come back, though.
Oh, absolutely.
The guy, we all love him. If you watch The Boys, I mean, he's kind of, he's awesome.
Yeah. It was discussed several times doing a sequel. Every now and again, it comes up, maybe a sequel. Yeah, this movie, I have to admit, guys, in this movie, I knew who Lena was because she was in Game of Thrones. She was doing Game of Thrones when this came out, and I knew who Karl was. The rest of the cast, like I was like, oh, I don't know who you are.
Well, like, yeah, I mean, most of the people
this thing did that well on the power of those two people, I think.
Yeah.
So I think Olivia Tilby was an excellent choice for Anderson. She played the part well. She had that sort of the physical presence of where you look and go, she's a judge. And
well, again, she wasn't really qualified.
Exactly.
But the only reason she was is because of her psychic ability.
Yeah, that was, you know what? That one little tidbit was a little contrived. Oh, you forgot your helmet. Oh, it messes with my son. You know, I don't know. I'm like, okay, girl, go ahead, but you're gonna get shot in the head. Like, I don't know.
He says that. He does say that. He's like, you can't be psychic with a bullet in your head.
Where they're aiming at you with these 50 cal.
I think it might have made more sense if she had the helmet on and then took it off to, or had it
at least maybe we saw it under her arm or something.
She could see it. Yeah, or something. Yeah, I agree that she should have had the helmet.
That bit was just a little contrived.
But I think it goes back to, again, Dredd is this force of nature. He's this faceless, judge, jury, and executioner. And she was supposed to be more of a human type character.
True. Yeah, she was.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what, though? She was killing people in cold blood by the end. She didn't hesitate.
Well, yeah, when she executed the one guy, like you said.
She let the one guy that got her gun.
Well, that was interesting. So when she went into his mind, one of the things that she put in there was him shooting her with her own gun. So when he came back to reality, that's what he did, of course, with the lawmaker going to be blowing up in his hand.
How did I miss that?
Oh, you're talking about the other
job.
guy. Yeah.
Anderson. Wow.
It kind of cracks me up that he didn't know, because it seemed like a lot of people knew that you don't mess with their guns, won't work. Like you can't.
Yeah, that was like a whole thing in the Stallone version.
It was kind of surprising that he didn't know that, but Yeah,
you would think the populace would know it.
Yeah. When the thing started making noise, you'd think you would have thrown it away. Like I'm holding a gun and it starts to make, that's kind of like a TV trope.
Yeah, here, have it back.
Guns, guns start to make whiny noises. Don't hold on to them.
Yeah.
Throw it away.
Start revving up. Just toss it.
Put it in the ejection chute on.
You got to put it in the chute that's on the wrong side of the.
Put it in the chute on the wrong side of the ship.
I'm sure you guys know that we're talking about Star Trek. The laundry chute, I call it.
The laundry chute.
Yes, or where Lazarus somehow crippled the whole ship by just moving a little jumper over. So easy to cripple the Enterprise.
So I'm with Mike that I've never seen the comic, but I read something interesting that the character actually ages and time flows in real time in the comic.
Oh, cool! So he's 45 years. So how old is he now in the comic?
Basically, he's 80 something. But they've had to force him to undergo rejuvenation therapy.
Yes, and he also has.
Well, he's also now on the council, so now he's he's not just a street judge anymore.
I think he has bionic eyes, which is a nod to the Domhnall Gleeson character. Do you remember that one shot? Mama took out his eyes and gave him bionic eyes. That actually happens in the comic to Judge Dredd, I think. So yeah. Oh, can we just talk about Domhnall's performance in this thing? Wow. He was amazing and not what I'm used to. I'm like, remember him in the Star Wars movie when he was, he's done a bunch of stuff. And this was different.
If I consider Urban a chameleon, he can do Dr. McCoy, he can be Judge Dredd, he can be I can't think of his character in The Boys, but he is a real chameleon. He is just outshone by never get his name right.
Domhnall. Yeah. How do you say Gleason's name, guys? Gleason, you guys know this kid. He looks like Fred or George Weasley. He's neither of them. Those are two different people. He's got the red hair and he's usually running around doing whatever.
The
usually playing like a Nazi a lot of times. Where is he? What is his name? I can't even find him on the cast list.
I know. That's what I'm looking for. And I'm like,
he's not on the cast list. Lena, Rachel, Andy Porteous, Jason. He's not on this list. That's weird. I'll cast him.
Domhnall Gleeson? Yeah.
Domhnall Gleeson, yeah. The other one I'm looking for is Chris Fairbanks, but I can't find him.
There's a movie that we should do sometime.
Are there any, aside from Karl being in Star Trek, what other roads do we have?
Sorry, Bruce. I will tell you the roads. Bruce, say that again.
That's a movie you should do. Is Ex Machina?
Oh, Ex Machina, yeah.
My wife hated that movie.
I liked it. That or Her. They're both quite good. All right, all roads tonight, kids. We've got Karl, of course, played McCoy. We've got Maurice back in the 95 in the Stallone version. We had Maurice. How do you say his last name? Rovis. The character's name was Miller. He played a Romulan captain on the Next Gen episode, The Chase. And you know what, kids? That's about it. Not a lot of roads to Star Trek tonight. Even with 2 movies, still not a lot of roads.
They all avoided the Dredd.
Domhnall, best known for your Ex Machina, Frank, About Time, Anna Karenina.
Yeah, he has that. He's one of those. You recognize him, but
you recognize him immediately.
Where do I know him from? One of those. He's one of those guys.
He did take a turn as Bill Weasley, but he's neither Fred nor George. He's got that redhead Weasley look about him. He does. He's
got that look. That's the best way to put it, I guess.
But he plays General Hux in Force Awakens or whichever the heck one.
But I was
right. Okay. Yep. Gotcha.
But I was really fascinated by looking at these 2 movies. Just to me, there was such a revolution in the acceptance of comic books as a source material, of doing these things in a serious manner where the hero doesn't have to quip every 5 minutes and stuff like that. It's really 2 sides of that revolution that happened, and it was really interesting.
I think a lot of this has to do with the popularity of things like San Diego Comic-Con and all the other big Comic-Cons that have come along, and then I think producers are looking at this and saying, okay, there's a market here. There's more to these things, like you say, than just kids reading these things, funny type movies. There's more serious. Obviously, Marvel has taken it to a new level. But you look at San Diego Comic-Con, and that is the premier place to roll out your trailer.
Yeah.
Or have that's the place. So, and we know that's become, like most of these conventions have become far more than comic books.
Yes.
They've gone beyond that. But I think but the popularity of these events has kind of fueled the film industry into doing this. I mean, when you look at how many just between DC and Marvel, how many superhero comic based, movies we have, it's really, when you really start to think about all the movies in the last 15 to 20 years that have come out that are based on a superhero comic.
Well, I mean, don't even go with the superhero comics. I mean, could there, back in '95, could you have had The Boys? Could you have had Umbrella Academy?
Not the way it is.
Yeah, not Umbrella.
I say this, we've
No.
become numb to that kind of violence. In other words, I think it's become an addiction that needs to be fed more and more and more. When you look at violence that we saw in let's go back to the 60s, and you start progressing 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, the aughts, the 10s, now we're in the 20s. It gets worse. In other words, it ramps up. And it used to be, okay, it was in movies. Now we see it on television.
Mm-hmm.
Game of Thrones was pretty violent. Graphic.
It all started with Roadrunner and the Coyote.
Yeah. Well, look at Walking Dead. I mean, I was appalled. If you saw the episode where the Asian guy gets it, what's his name?
Oh God, yeah, where Negan
smashes his head in him,
and now he's a good guy. That's how
they didn't pan away for that. They showed it,
and that was right out of the comic too. It was
but I'm like, it's one thing to see it drawn, it's another thing to see it like that.
Moving.
And I thought that was just way over the top, even for cable television. I really did, and I'm not easily, I'm not a sensitive person. I can take this stuff. But I think as a society, we've become an addiction to this kind of violence in films and TV, and we just if we look at movies like go back to like 70s and we see Jaws and we're like, that was we've talked about this before. People were so afraid, it was so scary, and you watch it today and you're like, what was scary about this movie?
Yeah,
it's a great movie. I still love it, but I don't find it scary.
The best one happened in the family here.
Glenn, thank you.
My wife was terrified when she was little of The Birds.
Yeah.
And
that was a scary movie.
She showed it to my daughter and I, and we sat there going,
yeah, why? As a kid, I remember seeing that movie and it was scary.
Yeah.
Time eases all fears.
So I think as a society, you can disagree with me I mean, it's fine, but I think we've become addicted to this violence on television, and I think it's just spilled out onto television from the movies, and I think they have to keep upping it to kind of keep that addiction, to satisfy that addiction.
I don't know if it's an addiction.
Well, I use that term very loosely, and I don't mean to take away from anybody who's truly suffering from something.
No. But I think it's more a case of how do we get people talking about this around the water cooler, and you've got to up the ante. Time.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. But I think when if it's not, or if it's too tame, we like we did The Mummy. Okay, like last week we did The Mummy, and Mary Beth made a point. Like anytime something violent happened to somebody, it was off camera. You might have seen it in the shadow. You might have seen, but you got the sense that it happened, but you didn't see it happen. And for me personally, I'm fine with that. I'm still fine with that. I don't need to see. And
they were chasing a PG rating or a PG-13 rating,
right? And I think that, but I think we're going back to Walking Dead. My daughter was growing up. She was a child. She's in her 20s now, but when that show was in its prime. And she wanted to watch it because kids in her middle school were watching this show. And I'm like, there is no way as a parent I can let you watch that show. I'm sorry. It's stuck. And it's kind of amazes me that there were parents, either they didn't know or didn't care, that were letting them watch that show, particularly that Glenn scene when Negan, bashes his head in with the baseball bat, with the barbed wire wrapped. I mean, I'm like, I think to myself, there's no way my daughter's watching this, and now I'd like watch it if you want. Now you're 20, knock yourself out.
She's an adult.
But it's just too much. It's too much. And I think there's a certain question you have to ask yourself. Is this really, should we put more controls on what people are able to watch as far as children?
I mean, the movie,
that's
obviously,
another argument. I'm not going to go down that.
It does have ratings like the movies, just no one pays any attention to it.
Yeah.
Side note: The Walking Dead is airing its final episodes now. I feel like this thing has been ending for like 3 years.
Yeah,
like,
this is a show.
It's ending.
I'll tell you, I love the show for like the first 4 or 5 seasons.
And
then it got like repetitive because of the storylines, and then it just got ridiculous.
This happens to so many good shows.
It should have ended like
strong.
10 years ago.
And then
I know people can hate me all you want for saying that. I know that's a huge following. This show needed to ended like 10 years ago. Yeah, I think I really got disgusted. Aside from the Glenn scene, there was the scene what we call the magic van. There's a scene where 2 of the characters they're hiding in this van on an highway overpass near Atlanta. The van is had crashed and is still teetering on the edge, of course, that trope. And the zombies are coming after them, and they're locked in this van. And of course, the zombies are pounding on it. The van falls off the cliff, off the overpass, and you see it go, and you see it turn like it's going to land on its roof because it's only dropping about 50, 75 feet. And then all of a sudden they cut and the van lands on all four wheels.
On the wheels.
I mean, everybody noticed it. Like, it was all over Facebook. People were like, what in the hell? But they call it the magic van because it like somehow did a complete somersault off camera.
Come on, go back to the A-Team where they would shoot, the thing full of bullets and everybody would get out at the end.
See, the A-Team we all knew was not realistic at all. I mean, we knew that. You can't really compare these. Was trying to that one and the other one that bothered me, and this is a little bit minor just because I understand how these things work. Was I call it the magic fire truck, where they find this fire truck. They're going to try to use it to get out. The zombies are coming. They can't get it running because the air filters and everything are completely because they were using it as a battering ram. We were at fire truck. And they're getting closed in and like, oh my God, all the zombies are on top of him. And all of a sudden, one of the characters, I think is Eugene, he's up on top with the water cannon and he starts blasting the zombies back. And I'm like, if you couldn't get the truck to run, you can't get the pump to run. Therefore, you get no water.
Where's the water
maybe that was a fireman. I understand how that worked. The average person might not understand that. It made for an interesting scene that they used because, of course, we know they use water cannons at riots and things like that. At least they used to, fire hoses. But I mean, it was just so ridiculous the level of stupidity that
bullets worked on tires.
Yeah, yes. A lot of stuff like that. So that's why I was done with it.
Getting back to our two movies.
I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent. Hello, welcome.
We're coming up on 8, so I'm gonna say that I think the 2012 movie got Dredd, the character, the man Dredd, right. Even if I got plot details or other things wrong, the 95 movie got the character, the man Dredd, wrong, but the look of it, like the overall kind of look of everything, was right. That actually isn't my observation. That's something I read in my research.
I've heard that as well.
I agree with that.
I heard that as well. And they did take elements. The original, the 95, did take elements like the fact that he's a clone.
Mm-hmm. And I know they put the blue contact lenses in. Yeah. He and Armand did. They could have passed sort of vaguely as brothers.
Yeah, that was the thing. If their DNA was identical, because that's how they faked him.
They weren't clones. Were they clones?
They should have looked exactly alike.
No, they weren't clones. They were the DNA was taken from the primary Judge, but combined with various elements.
They were grown.
They were grown. They
were supposed to, but they allegedly had identical DNA, which they should have looked exactly like each other, and they did.
Oh, we didn't mention the ABC Warrior, that big giant metal robot thing. People seem to enjoy the big giant metal robot thing.
I think that seemed to be very 90s to me. I don't know why.
Big giant metal robot thing.
Maybe that came out of RoboCop sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It was interesting. Of course, why would you it's so funny. They make this war robot and it's kind of like groans and moans and war. And it's like, why would you give it this?
Why would it? Yeah.
Again, why? If it's just a machine that goes off to war, it doesn't need to have a personality.
Bill Sotag is still on Walking Dead talking about Rick yelling Carl.
Yeah, Carl. So anyway, maybe one day we'll do Walking Dead when I'm really drunk or something.
Bruce, what is your final assessment of the two Dredd movies?
Like I said, it's really interesting to see two films taken from the same source material, with being 17 years apart, and how the movie industry changed and what was acceptable and what was happening. To me, that's really cool because Judge Dredd was so 90s. I mean, it was your typical summer blockbuster from the 90s. And while 2012 isn't sort of up there with The Boys and stuff of sort of the current era, it's still 10 years old. Mm-hmm. You can really see it being on the other side of that fence.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, it's really interesting. I just wish they would have done sequels. I think it would have been really good. I think they could have really gotten some interesting social commentary in there.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But the 2012 film, I agree, is the better film. And again, I think both films, I think, take things accurately from the comic, from what I've read. Both of them get things wrong from the comic, from what I've read. But I think I agree. I think the 2012 either is ripe for more films, or I could see it if you tone down the violence a little bit, or the graphicness of the violence, I should say. I could see it as a TV series.
Maybe.
I could see it. I could see, I could see that. And I think it would work well. I think it would work better than that than a film.
Maybe.
We can really talk,
So we have the Mandalorian and we'd have Dredd, both of them running around, never taking their helmets off.
So that's my thing. Nothing against Stallone. Again, I think he was much stronger in Demolition Man, which was a very similar film in a lot of ways to his film of Judge Dredd. But I think that one we knew going in was going to be silly, especially when you had Dennis Leary as your bad guy, or theoretically as one of the potential bad guys, and then of course it ends up being Wesley Snipes in the end. But maybe we'll do that if you guys want to. We can do Demolition Man, not right away, since I feel like we just did this one.
We just did,
too close together. Yeah. So, Mary Beth, what are your final thoughts on this?
Well, like what I kind of said before is exactly what you said, Rizzo. 2012 got Dredd character right, everything else wrong. 95 got Dredd the man wrong, everything else right. The 95 movie had that. You remember how weird Fifth Element was? Like, it was just weird. They did all these weird things. That's what I feel like the 95. I mean, 95 movie had a punk guy, Ian Drury, in it. The costumes were Gianni Versace. The Cure wasn't one of the theme songs, or The Cure did the theme song or something. Like, that's just weird. It had that Fifth Element weird.
But it didn't work.
And it didn't work. It didn't.
I think you see it does. The city Mega City 1 and New York from Fifth Element have a lot of similarities in the way they look, the visuals of it. It's kind of overbuilt. Everything is just piled on top of each other. We literally have the Statue of Liberty sitting in the middle of the city, and they did mention that they moved it.
But I think that the 95 film, if someone was able to take Stallone aside, and it might have taken months, and said, this is the character, this is what we're trying to do with it. Stallone is a hell of an actor. I mean, he's proved that in more recent years. He could have easily done great things with this.
I agree. I think a lot of it was direction.
He was on an evolution. Like, he got better as the dog.
Well, his characters. Let's be honest. He went from Rocky. He did Rocky. He did Rambo. Which were not real acting.
The original Rocky was, I think, the original one.
But he kind of played the same character, kind of a not really intelligent, just a muscle guy, good heart, but he didn't really. Yeah, later on he started to have his roles, and we could see him act more, and his characters had more roundedness to them. Certainly more currently, but I think he was just thrown in there for a name.
Oh, absolutely.
Clearly, and I think he had whether it was his choice on his acting or it was the director's choice to tell him how to act. I think it just became, and Asante the same thing.
Yeah,
too much of it was over the top.
Yep.
I feel like he didn't really come into his own until the Expendables.
Okay.
Fair. All right. No, we've gone way over the hour. At least
we're over. Let's All right. Let's
what
see.
Does Roy got going on?
Roy, Phil. Guys,
always say Roy, then you say Phil.
I know. Every week. That's fine. Just leave it like that. I like
it. What does Phil have going on? She's gonna go Roy.
No, I like this one. Guys, tune in WUSB Stony Brook. You can listen on the air at 90.1 FM or 107.3 FM, or you can stream it anywhere you have interwebs. But he will be speaking with Shane Atkinson and Bo West about the release of the new Evership album, which is called The Uncrowned King Act 2. This is a rock opera, and it is based on the classic allegorical novel The Uncrowned King by Harold Bell. Right. Roy is, and that starts at 3 tomorrow. Roy is doing Back to the Future. Now, he and I were talking today. Yes, we already did Back to Future, but he's doing this whole, he said travel. I think he meant time travel. I think he's doing an entire time travel month this month. So he's got Back to the Future going. Rizzo, what do we have going on? And if you're not sure, I wrote it down.
Yeah, you better tell me.
I wrote on my calendar, sci-fi books, ?
Oh, yeah. So this is an idea I had, and hopefully maybe we should come back. Maybe we can get, if Kent's around, or maybe we can get some more people. Because these are books.
We want you.
Books that should be movies.
Yes.
Ooh.
And we're going to do a counterpoint. Books that were movies that should not have been movies. In other words, they stunk. Book great, movie stinks.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of those. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna try to get together some, a little bit of a panel. So think about, try to pick just one or two, because we're not gonna, if we have a bunch of people, it's not gonna have too much time to go into.
I'm in. I've got a few that come off right.
So
off
at least do one that you really like. That should be a movie that has not been made a movie. It's okay if it's been optioned, but if it hasn't been made actually into a movie. Second is what you think is a movie that was a great book that should have never been made into.
That was a bad movie.
So that being said, I think everybody else says is still kind of doing nothing as far as
Dredds is not doing much of anything. So planning his wedding. Jeff Rubel says thanks for a dreadful episode. Yes, it was a dreadful episode.
I see what you did there. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. Bruce, thanks again for joining us.
No problem.
And as always, live long and prosper, folks.
Bye, Jeff's Design.
Right, Jeff. Don't push. I don't want to push people so much.
But
it is 20% off this week, though. It is 20% off. Good Christmas presents. See, I got mine. You can customize, guys. See?
You can customize it.
You can customize. See, I have meat popsicle. And I got the new logo on the back. So, all right, enough of that. Good night, folks.
Say good night, Gracie.